as far as the code talk is concerned, now I was acquainted with four of them, personally acquainted. One of them was my uncle, James Edwards, and like I say, they never talk about their their war deeds or services because they were told not to tell anything about what they're doing. So they just wouldn't. Even after they got out, they didn't tell that. And even that's actually that's what Choctaws are. You can't get too much out of them, and so except some of them, I guess you can get a lot out of them. But they didn't tell much about that. I was with my uncle, and he was my pastor, and he married me and my wife, and he helped every way he could in my spiritual life, but he never really talked about his code talker, other than just knowing that they were one of the code talkers, and I didn't know what the code talkers were all about, but that's one reason. But then when he had a write-up in a newspaper, just like y'all doing now, getting information, and he told a story about how they found the Choctaws to become code talkers for World War I. They're a group of Choctaws. Whenever a group of Choctaws get together, they have a good time. They just talk in their own language and laugh and play around and kid each other. And the officer saw them out there and says, what are y'all talking? And James Edwards says, we're talking Choctaw. That's our language. He says, how many of you got in the company here? Oh, got in the whole company here, 18, 20. And so the officer there got the idea that they could use them maybe someplace. So they asked them to come and to talk Choctaw to them and to train them to talk on the phones and relay messages. And so then they put them on the end of the telephone lines, and they talked in Choctaw, and this is when the war began to move, because they came to a standstill because they translated every message that the United States, their allies, sent, and they just couldn't move until the Choctaws came in, and they started moving then. They won the war within 2 months after that, and we just feel like the Choctaws had a great part in that to get their army moving, because at that standstill, they were starving to death. The French, they were helping the French, and the French were just starving to death because they couldn't get any food shipped to them until the languages, the Choctaws began to relay in these messages, and they broke through and got food to them. And this is why French likes Choctaws so much. They came here in 1993 and honored the Choctaw and Comanches at that time. And so that's what they're known for, as code talkers. They talk in their own language to help win the World War I. In my Navy career is that when I was in high school at Littleton, that's where I mentioned earlier, and they stopped football whenever the war broke out. That's in 1941, December the 7th. And the following year, they didn't have any football team, and I liked to play football. And I didn't know what I was going to do because all my friends was joining the services. And I said, well, I still want to play football, and I wasn't old enough to go to join service. I was 17 years old, and so I went to a Murray College football game, and one of my friends was playing on there and said that told the coach, and the coach offered me, says, you come over here and we'll give you your high school education, play football for us. So I went to Murray College and played football there and got my the education GED with that. But before I did that, though, it was halfway through the football season, and some reason my friend and I got the thing that everybody's going to war. Oh, we might as well too. So let's join the Navy. We just popped up and said that. So we went to Hugo, Oklahoma, to the recruiting station place, and went to the recruiting officer, and they gave us a preliminary test, and he didn't pass because he wore glasses. And I passed, and they shipped me to Oklahoma City. In a few days, they shipped me to Oklahoma City, and of course I had to get permission from my father because I was 17. And so they shipped me to Oklahoma City, and from there they shipped me to San Diego. And then, of course, San Diego is a training base for the Navy, and I met friends over there because I used to go to school with, and things like that kept happening, and I went in service, and they gave me a test to qualify, see what I can qualify for. And I used the semaphores. I learned the semaphores. Of course, at Jones Academy, they taught you how to march and marching drills. And so I had experience in a marching drill, and so I didn't have any problem in the Navy marching. And then they give you tests for what you qualify for, skills, other skills. And some reason I wound up with the Morse code. I learned Morse code real easy. And the semaphore is a flag, waving those flags and learning Morse code is by flashing light. And so they sent me to school at the University of Illinois, and I was there 4 months in the school there. And then from there I went into service, and I worked with the ship. I was going on a fleet. It was a sort of loading ships carrying oil. It was the oil tankers. And then they shipped me to Seattle, Washington to get on one of those ships. And while I was there, the ship sunk. So it never did get to port. So they said, now you got to make another choice now. And he said, you want to go to a submarine? I said, I'll go to a submarine. So they sent me to submarine school way in Florida. So I traveled from Washington State to Florida. And in the meantime, my father passed away. And I got to Florida, and then I had to come back to Oklahoma about a month's time, and then from Florida I began to learn my, well, that's where I trained. They kept me going on my signaling and communications, and so they shipped me to go to Hawaii to go to a rescue academy. Rescue crew, the rescue people that has been in sunken ships and things like that. And so I was in there for a while, and I didn't care too much for that because the boats were too small. They were like PT boats. And so they put me on a larger aircraft carrier, but I wanted to stay with the communication crew, and they wanted me to do that. So I directed the communication stations there at Pearl Harbor. I was there for about a year, and then they shipped me on to French frigate Shoals, and I stayed there and then came back. And then that's when I was discharged. I never did see real action services as far as the war was concerned. And I feel that, again, being trusting the Lord for my safety, that He just kept me away from all these things.